Hi there, this is Raven Dana with Walking Between the Worlds, and thanks for joining me today. It is Wednesday, February 22nd, and this is class 2 of the spirit animals, and not just spirit animals, totem animals, power animals. Our connections with the natural world are very deep and very broad, and we sometimes get the idea that spirit animals is something new. It's a kind of new agey term, and it's really not. It's the connections that we have with the animal kingdom, since we are animals, right, is not only ancient, but it's also very profound, because we rely on them for a level of cooperation, for our food supply. And when we were hunting, animals, we had a whole different way of relating to animals that I think was infinitely healthier, because there was a level of respect and a level of gratitude that we showed for each animal when we took a life and it became part of our food source. So unfortunately, it's also, we're not going to spend time on it in this class, but it is something I'd like you to consider: the sacredness of the connection between we human animals and the other animals, that especially those that have been used as sources of food, that now, instead of living in the wild or being raised in a way where they're happy and healthy until the day they're thanked and eaten, right? Instead of that, we rely on these horrifying factory farms where the animals have a terrible life and they die an unpleasant death. So I again don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I do want to put the idea out there that in one of the ways that you can honor yourself and the animal kingdom is to, as much as possible, not support an industry that thinks of animals as meaningless, soulless, items to make money from, rather than beings whose life source we cultivate as a food source, right? Because it's a whole other conversation. While I have great respect for those people who choose to be vegans or vegetarians, it is for many of us not the way we want to go, not an option for one reason or another. And so to look at that relationship between ourselves and the animals we eat as sacred, and to make our choices differently than we have in the past with some consideration is a good thing. And it's another way to honor and support our connections with the animals. Okay, enough said. I'm going to talk a little bit about totem animals today. In fact, we're going to do an exercise in a little while about totem animals. And so I would suggest that you have a piece of paper and a pen or pencil handy, because we're going to do a little bit of writing that you're then going to take into the week with you and add to. So if you need a minute to grab a sheet of paper and a pen, that's great. Do it now. We have totem animals in our culture. We just don't recognize that that's what they are, right? Totem animals historically, a totem pole, for example, contains the animals that have the traits or the properties of that particular culture or that particular tribe or that particular hierarchy or family. So if you had a personal totem pole, it would contain the animals that best described your traits, that best, or perhaps the traits you wish to have. Maybe you don't have all of them, but those animals are important and special to you. So we're going to take a look at how to align yourself with the totem animals that you are associated with. So it's going to be a little way for us to play. But in the meantime, let's think of the totem animals that we do have in our culture. Well, we have the American eagle, right? The eagle is a totem animal. It represents a particular set of qualities that we associate with being in the United States. There are plenty of mascots, and they're totem animals, right? The NFL has bears and cardinals and rams and seahawks and eagles, and right, there are plenty of others. The NBA has hawks and bucks and bulls, and the NHL has panthers and bruins and coyotes. So I want you to understand that when a team chooses an animal as a mascot, it's a totem. This is what it is to have a totem, to put that animal's face or their some kind of inscription on the clothing that provides for you that sense of awareness of the strength or power of that animal that you are bringing into the game, bringing into your body, bringing into your team. So your teammates, that's, they're the bears or the ravens or the eagles. So there's a reason for that. It's not just a pretty name. It is, in essence, a totem. So another way to look at that is, well, you could say it's a spirit animal or a power animal, but traditionally the totem was about representing the particular trait or traits that had to do with that tribe or that culture. So in this case, it's pretty clear that that's what we're doing when we're selecting an animal for a team, is we're cultivating that trait, or we're allowing that trait to pass through us from the larger spirit of that collective family of animals, right? We're going to do a little practice right now that'll be simple and easy. I want to talk a bit about becoming an animal. So when we're kids, right, when you were a kid, did you ever pretend you were an animal? Pretend you were a dog and, bark and go around on all fours, or want somebody to toss you a treat that you'd catch in your mouth? Or, my granddaughter likes to be a cat and walk like a cat and meow like a cat and drink milk out of a bowl, even though her cat does not drink milk. But be that as it may, I used to like being a horse. I used to gallop around with a friend of mine. Her name was Cheryl. Well, her name is still Cheryl. I just have lost touch with her. But I can remember literally galloping around a park with her, my friend Cheryl, and feeling this tremendous sense of freedom and power and energy and just sort of raw excitement, the imagining the thundering of my hooves and the speed of moving across the landscape. And lots of kids are very much attracted to horses. So, there's my friend Flicka, there's Silver, there's these horses there's Black Beauty, these horses in our stories and in our culture that represent power and sexuality and speed and wildness and energy. So that's I want you to just sort of think about that. If you became an animal as a child or had an affinity for an animal, what was it? What would it be? Cats, dogs, birds. I also used to remember sitting at the window and watching pigeons and seagulls and imagining that I was a crow or a raven and could fly out there with the birds, vividly imagining what it would feel like for my legs to become a tail, my hands to become talons, and my wings to emerge from my back, and my face to grow a beak. It was such an intense pleasure to have that daydream and to be able to fly out the window and look down over the landscape. And of course, this is something, it's not just a playtime, pleasure, pastime for children. This is something that people, the indigenous people of many cultures, have actually practiced in order to scope out the landscape, to be able to project themselves like a bird flying over the landscape or into a bird that was flying over the landscape and scope out the land. There are histories where there are maps of areas that could only have come from a topside view that clearly people back in those days did not have. So, we can go to ancient astronaut theory and talk about that, but there's also this shamanic aspect, this ability to literally soar like a bird over the landscape, be one with a bird, especially if there was a culture that revered birds, a lot of birds in an area, right? Then that's another way to scope out the land. So come up with that for a minute. And if you didn't have one as a kid, that's okay. Pick one. Pick an animal that you might like to be now, as a way to have a fun afternoon. Think about the animal. Just remember what you know about the animal. When you do this on your own later, I'd say do an extended version of it. But for now, we're going to just play with putting on the energy of an animal. When you do it later or do a practice, your homework assignment, you can even do a costume or an article of clothing, look up their diet, see where they live in the world, see what the special traits of that animal is. For now, we're just going to go with your memory, right? So what animal speaks to you? In his book, Animal Speaks, Ted Anderson offers a way to relate to our animal friends in 4 different ways. He says the first way to take on the energy or to appreciate an animal is to simply see the animal's beauty in the world, right? Like I just said, what does it eat? Where does it live? The second way is to ask ourselves, what does that animal mean to me? To one person, a snake is a thing of beauty. To another person, a snake is something terrifying. So what does that animal mean to me is the second way to relate to the animal as a symbol. And how do you feel and what does that bring out in you? The third way to relate to the animal is more, again, as a power animal, that animals exist in the spirit world in this connection of energy. So this group of animals will tend to have certain traits, energies, powers. So what cultures, you might even think of it culturally, what cultures revere certain animals and what is that reverence about, right? That Egyptians honored cats, for example. They also, by the way, honored crocodiles, which we're going to talk about a little later. And then the fourth way is a personal totem, to look at the animals in terms of traits that you have that you might share. If you're a funny, snarky, tricky kind of person, well, maybe a fox or a crow or a raven is one of your totem animals. If you're stable and steady and solid, maybe an elephant is one of your animals. So anyway, I'm just saying that pick something for now that works for you. So here's what we're going to do. So pick an animal that calls to you in some way or has appeared to you in a dream or showed up in waking life that you have a particular affinity for. And we're going to do a mini version of this practice right now. So close your eyes. See the animal in front of you. See it clearly. Let it see you. Feel your connection. Take a breath and keep looking at that animal. If it's larger than you are, take a breath and step into the animal. If it's smaller than you, stand still and let it leap into your body. Feel its energy. Let that energy wash over you, transform you. Feel yourself taking the shape of that animal. Feel the special traits and powers of that animal. Feel what your body now feels like. Notice your senses, how they may have shifted. Notice how your thinking completely changes. Feel your skin. Notice what you can smell. Good. Now, breathing yourself back into your human animal side. Take a step back. Look at the animal again now that you are each individuals one more time. And invite the animal to stay with you, to enter your dreams, and to inform you. Say thank you. Just take one more step back and watch as the animal turns and disappears. Now allow your eyes to open. Great. Sit with that for a moment. See how you've been informed. What did that feel like? I would invite you to play with that this week. If that animal is special to you, do it again. Do it for longer. Do it with more detail. Or pick several other animals and do it a few more times. I'd love to know how the experiment works for you, how the experience informs you, what the experience awakens in you. Okay, so we're going to talk about a few animals today. Snakes. Some people love them, some people are terrified of them. But snake medicine is very old. Snake magic is old. Snakes as a force to revere is very old. Long before snakes got a bad reputation, largely from religion, snakes were considered to be tremendously good magic, good medicine, good energy. We have one of the most famous things in our culture is the snake totem. It shows up as the caduceus, right? The caduceus. Which is a staff with snakes coiled around it. Has to do with the medical profession. And on ambulances, we see the rod or the staff with one snake coiled around it, which is a little different, but exactly the same idea. It just depends on what culture it has risen from. So it is the official insignia of the United States Medical Corps, the Navy Pharmacy Division, and the Public Health Service. The caduceus is also the magic wand carried by Hermes. The Romans called him Mercury, right? The messenger of the gods. And it was also the staff of Asclepius, which is the healer, the first true medicine, the healer of Greek medicine. Now, both symbols are widely used to represent healing. So snake energy is very important. It stands for many different kinds of things. Of course, we could spend an entire class just on snakes, but we don't have that kind of time. So snakes, if you are afraid of them, consider what you might actually be afraid of in yourself, right? Snakes can represent transformation. As they grow out of their skin, they shed their skin. So it's regeneration and renewal. Snake medicine can be about becoming stronger from that which tries to harm or hurt you, right? Like a snake bite, a snake venom is not always a bad thing. It can be, but it can also be something that symbolically makes you stronger. It's also a very old goddess energy. So it has in part to do with the rising of the goddess in our culture, and as Gaia, as the rising of the earth, the movement of spring. There's a tremendous connection with goddesses through history and snake energy, which again, we can talk about the myths and the cultures of how that then became through religion, how the snake then got a bad reputation. But that is not how she started out. The snake is a tremendous symbol of healing and female energy and sexuality and transformation, regeneration, and power. So if you have some issues with snakes, you might consider what it is about the snake that frightens you, or what it is about the snake energy within yourself that you are frightened by or that you feel inhibited by. So it's a place to play. All right, snakes. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the wolf. So most people at some point in their lives have a connection to wolves or dogs. A few people don't, but a lot of people that, they have either have a dog or they know a dog or they have an affinity for wolves. So we're going to talk about the wolf because our connection to dogs actually comes from wolves, from the ancient way in which wolves allied themselves with human beings. So the human beings would feed the wolves would help protect the humans, and there was an alliance made at some point in history. So the wolves did not become tame. The wolves, though, eventually evolved into, what we think of today as the relationship that we have with dogs, right? Came from our early on relationship with wolves. So they still, in our culture, represent the cooperation of a pack. We humans are also pack animals. Wolves, though, also represent the untamable, the wildness, the call of nature, that howling at the moon, sacred wildness, their refusal to be domesticated. So you may have heard of the book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. So you might have that kind of an alliance with the wolves, something within you that refuses to be domesticated, your wildness that is sacred and therefore you want it preserved. So wolves have a very interesting structured pack order, and the way that they cooperate with each other and the way that they protect each other. So a wolf energy, again, we can look at it as scary or vicious, but really wolf energy has to do with protection. It has to do with respect and dominance. It has to do with being able to hold the wild in a special way so that what we do is good for the pack. All right. So play, if you like wolves and you go howl at the moon and you have an affinity for wolves, it's another place. It's another thing to take a look at. What is that for you? What calls to you about the wolf energy, or what is that trying to wake up in you? So if you like wolves, then maybe one of the animals you choose this week to step into might be a wolf. Okay. We're going to talk next about, crocodiles and alligators. There's a book called, what's it called? Taking Albert Home, or Walking Albert Home. Albert's in the title. Albert is the name of an alligator or crocodile. No, it's an alligator. He's an alligator. It's a true story, and it's these people who get this alligator, and they raise it, and eventually it gets so big that they know they have to do something with it. But it's a very well written book and a lovely story, and it's true. So you might want to look it up. You might think, why in God's name is she talking about alligators and crocodiles? Well, so glad you asked. They're so old. They're one of the oldest living things on the planet. They're old, and they have this tremendous instinctive ability. When we take a look at animals that have been on the planet a long time, we often discover that there are cultures that have particularly aligned with them, and that there are cultures that have turned them into gods or demigods. Now, sometimes a spirit animal will show up in the most unexpected of ways. So I'm going to tell you a true story about my relationship with crocodiles. Many years ago, about a decade or more ago, I had a dream. I was in what appeared to be like a beach house, and people were leaving, and it was being closed up for the season, and I was supposed to go down to the basement and set the security system. And I said okay, and the people left, and I would be the last one out. So I went down to the basement, but what was there? The basement was filled with baby crocodiles, which was perfectly normal to me in the dream. It made sense at the time. And what I was doing with them, I was picking them up one at a time and carrying them to this bathroom where there was a large tub and it was filled with water, and I was slipping the crocodiles into the water. And then when it got full of crocodiles, then it was going to be transported to where they went for the winter, right? To where they anyway, they were going to be transported somewhere. The security system would be set. So I was picking them up one at a time, and when I got there were maybe, I want to say 6 or so of them. When I got the last one in the tub, I had the strongest inclination, for this to work, I need to get in the tub with them. Well, I didn't really want to get in the tub with the crocodiles, but I looked at them and I knew they weren't going to do me any harm, and I felt this energy coming from them. So I thought, okay, and I sat on the edge of the tub and I put both of my legs in, and just then there was a figure standing next to me. And this figure, this man, said, yes, you need to go with them. And he touched me on the back of the neck. My hair was up. And all he did was touch me on the back of the neck. And I had such a surge of energy, power, energy, raw energy. And it was sensual too. It was all of this vibration. It woke me up. But as I woke up, I also realized that energetically, these crocodiles and me were being transported to the Nile. And I thought, this is the strangest thing ever. So that was the beginning of my relationship with crocodiles. Then I kept having this alliance, this feeling about crocodiles, this sense of crocodiles. To make a very long story short, I was having some physical issues at the time, and I was having some tests done because I had something abnormal going on, and I was told that I might have cancer. So I went on a workshop. I went off on this workshop with Robert Moss, by the way. And just before I left, I had again this crocodile. And I thought, okay, what is speaking to me about this crocodile? So I Googled it up. I Googled up crocodile gods. Didn't know there was one. Well, there is. His name is Sobek. He's an Egyptian god. He's the ruler of the Nile. Some Egyptian sects believed that he created order in the universe, and he was known for protection and for healing. So I thought, well, this is fascinating. I went on Amazon. I found there was a medal, which was Sobek. Who knew? I got it. Mysteriously, it arrived the next day, and off I went on this workshop. So I brought the dream up to Robert Moss, and he said, oh, it's for healing. And I thought, mm-hmm. And so we did a practice. I pulled out my little medal of Sobek. He told me all about the ancient god Sobek and what he was for, the wisdom of exploring and befriending the dark waters of the deep unconscious. So if anybody knows anything about healing, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on in the deep unconscious that can make us well or make us not so well. So in the course of that workshop, I uncovered what was going on with me unconsciously. And when I came back and went for the third set of tests, everything had changed and I was completely clear and my cells were normal. And I thought, well, so I still to this day, have that medal, and I honor Sobek, and I'm grateful for his intercession in my ability to see what was going on there. So the crocodiles and alligators, I consider them my friends and my allies, and I have pictures of them that I took when I was in Florida, alligators, not crocodiles, and so on. Okay, so if the crocodile comes on your radar, again, look it up. You never know what's going on there. And I'm going to encourage you again not to go with any kind of quote-unquote party line spirit animal meaning, that you want to actually investigate the older forms of connection and what different cultures looked to them for. And, don't let yourself be limited. All right, another one that comes up for people is sharks. Of all things, sharks that most people are terrified of. But sharks have an incredible ability to heal. They're very resilient to injury, and they don't get diseases like cancer. sharks have evolved something special in their DNA that is much more tolerant to damage. And great white sharks, researchers now say, may hold secrets to curing cancer and other age-related diseases, which I think is fascinating. Now, I learned about shark medicine from Robert Moss, who tells a story about dreaming for other people, sharing with them an image or a story that will help them with their own healing. And his relationship with sharks has to do with helping people create the images of sharks eating their cancer, because sharks don't get cancer. And he has had tremendous success with helping people do that. And this is, again, before the more recent research came out showing this connection between shark DNA and what might be possible for humans if the research continues. So I'm just giving you this because sometimes an animal will pop up and we'll think, what on earth? Wow, why do I have an attraction for sharks? Am I a mindless eating machine? Am I a terror machine? No, there's, something else going on there. And you may or may not know what it is, and that's okay. So I'm encouraging you to go with whatever energy shows up for you and assume that somewhere in there it's right for you, and it will reveal itself. Okay? I have another page of notes here to take a look at. All right, horses. Our affinity for horses, right? Black Beauty, my friend Flicka, our affinity for horses, the wild, wild west, ponies riding across the plains, Native Americans with their painted horses. Horses are energy and power and beauty and all kinds of things. Horses also have a very, very strong ability for empathy, for picking up on the emotions of humans, for reading energy, for even understanding facial cues, which I think is fascinating. And in many Native American cultures, horses are sacred. They're cared for and protected and considered to be kin. Okay, so to the Lakota and Dakota, the horse is a relative. All animals are considered kin and relations, but horses are special. They're like brothers and sisters. All right. History tells us that modern-day horses arrived in the Americas in the 1500s. But there is scientific evidence that horses inhabited this country for thousands of years before that. All right. Horses are very keen empaths, and so we have something in the world that's equine therapy. So sometimes when a horse calls to us, it might have to do with our ability to be present to others, to develop our empathy, to read the signs and signals that our busy mind is not letting us see. Or it could be as simple as being about feeling our own power, feeling our own surge of energy, letting ourselves freely run forward across the open space. So it can be anything. And you get to choose, you get to play in the arena of what this animal presence brings to you, why it's calling to you. Okay. I don't want to take a whole lot of time, and I know I'm getting wordy with you today, but I do want to do this totem pole practice. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to give you this assignment to kind of carry on into your week, is to develop this practice after we set it up. So get a piece of paper, and then you're going to write, starting at the bottom. You can draw 8 circles if you want, or 8 lines with a little bit of space between them. And so I'm going to have you do something very simple that's going to help you connect with the animals that are present to you in terms of either traits you have or traits that would help to balance you out. And there is no thinking involved. So this is nothing to figure out. This is not a mental exercise. It's a noticing exercise. So the first thing I want you to do is get your paper, put it in front of you, sit quietly and take a breath. All right? The idea is not to think or assess anything. It's going to happen very quickly. You're going to notice and record things quicker than you're going to want to. So again, don't overthink anything. And then I'll give you more information once this part is done. So start with the bottom circle or the bottom line. I want you to put your hand over it and just think of that space or that circle as a sphere of energy. Think of it residing at the base of your spine, as if there's a little sphere of energy. Now, what animal is in there? Don't think about it. Just notice whatever animal might be in there. Okay, and write it down. If you get more than one, then the first one that you see or the first one that taps you on the shoulder, write it down on that first line. Great. Now move up to the next spot, the next circle or line. Take a breath, close your eyes again, see a sphere. Relate that sphere to the energy coming from around your navel. And see what animal is in that circle. What animal is in the sphere in front of you? Good, write that down. Moving on, we're going to do this quickly. All right, write it down. After you've written the name of that animal down, you're going to take a breath, clear that out. Put your hand on the next circle or line. Close your eyes. Notice the sphere. Feel the energy from your solar plexus connecting with that sphere, and notice what animal is in there. Just notice. Great. Whatever it is, whatever comes to you, write it down. All right. Now that you're writing it down, as you're writing it, take another breath and clear yourself. Finish writing that word. Close your eyes again as you put your hand up on the next circle or the next line. See the sphere. Feel the energy from that sphere connecting to the energy around your heart. Notice what animal is in that sphere. And write it down. Good. As you're writing that animal's name, take a breath. Clear yourself of those thoughts. Move your hand up to the next place once you've written. Close your eyes again. Take a breath. Notice the sphere. Feel the energy connecting between the sphere and your throat. Just feel it. See that sphere. Notice what animal is there. And write it down. Perfect. As you're writing down the name of that animal, take another breath. Clear yourself. Move your hand up to the next spot, the next circle or line. Close your eyes. Notice the sphere. Take a breath. Feel the energy resonating between the sphere and the center of your forehead. Just feel it happening. And notice what animal appears in that sphere. Perfect. Write it down. As you're writing the animal, take a breath. Clear the energy. Now, once it's written, move your hand up to the next spot. Close your eyes. Take a breath. See the sphere. Feel the energy resonate between the top of your head and the sphere. Notice what animal is in there. Just notice. Perfect. Write it down. As you write it down, take a breath. After you've written it down, there is one more, believe it or not. There's 8. We're doing 8. Close your eyes. See the sphere. And feel that sphere resonating with the energy that's hovering about a foot above the top of your head. About a foot above the top of your head. See that sphere and notice what animal's in there. Perfect. Write it down. Take a breath. And come all the way back. Now take a look at the 8 animals that you've written, one above the other like this. It's a totem pole. What you're going to do during the week as you play with this idea is you're going to collect some pictures of animals, or you can go online and print them, little pictures of animals, and go ahead and arrange them like a totem pole, because that's what we're doing. And then you can play with this. You can work with it a little bit more. You can once you have your totem pole right here, then what you're going to do with it is this. To the left side, you can write down any notes you want to take down about chakras, about the energy of the chakras. To the right-hand side, you're going to write down any notes that you want to take about the meaning of that animal, what that animal trait means to you, or what it's bringing to you, or what you need from it to help you balance, so that you're seeing how the animals, the animal totems, inform, inspire, and balance you. Now, it doesn't mean that these are the animals that are like sitting in your chakras all the time, or they're going to be there. All of this is going to change. It's going to change because you change. Right? Animals come and go from our awareness. I'm not, wearing every day a totem of the crocodile because I had an experience a number of years ago. But I do have a couple crocodiles laying around, and I really like them, right? So I just want you to understand that there's nothing written in stone about these practices, that our alliance with animals, even though it's there, it will shift and change depending on what they're bringing to us or what we need and we're calling to us. So this is a bigger experience than you might imagine, especially if you notice in nature that certain animals show up for you. So you might notice when you're out that squirrels always come to you, or pigeons always poop on your car, or you always see a fox when you're in the woods. So we're going to take a look at those kinds of alliances as well. I have one more assignment for you, though. I didn't talk about the elephant, but I want you to look at it. We'll talk about it next time, but I want you to play with it this week. I want you to create a couple of notes for yourself by investigating the elephant. What might that elephant mean to you? What does the elephant mean culturally? Where are elephants important? What traits and qualities do they bring to the party? Couple of things I'll let you know. Elephants cry real tears. Elephants are very family oriented. Elephants also produce a sound called infrasound that human beings cannot hear with their ears. So those are some interesting little fun facts for you to kind of start off your elephant exploration with. When you're connecting with spirit animals this week, please let yourself be free to move like the animal, to eat something they would eat, to put on a shirt or a hat or a scarf or a piece of clothing that helps you feel more like that animal, helps you invite that energy in. If you're playing with the tiger and you have a shirt with a tiger on it, by all means wear it. Eat a rare steak, whatever that is that works for you to help you connect with the energy of that spirit animal. And please pay attention to your dreams. You might find that your dreams suddenly have more animals than you realized were there. Maybe they were always there and you didn't notice them because they weren't big players. Maybe they were in the distance. Maybe you'll have a dream with an animal where it will come right up to you. I've had dreams. I had a dream once where I opened a door. I was in a house and I'm visiting somebody, and I heard something on the porch, and I opened a door, and it was a baby buffalo. And what it did is it put its head down and it rubbed its head on me the way a cat might. It was a remarkable dream. I had another dream about an elephant in a pool doing, swimming and playing and being in the pool. And I knew that I was blessed with this elephant in my dream. By the way, when you look up your animals, check out cultures that hold animal gods as part of their pantheon, because this is another important clue as to their larger energy. All right, I know I have gone on longer than I normally do today, but I hope that you enjoyed yourself. There's so much information here. We're going to focus on birds next time. So we're going to cover a lot of different birds. We'll talk about crows and ravens and owls and vultures and sparrows and pigeons and the blue heron. Cardinals, if you have something special that you'd like me to cover, please let me know, okay? And also, as we go through this week's material, if you notice that there's an animal or that there's an experience, that there's something you want me to pay more attention to or talk a little more about, message me, or put it on the YouTube page, where this video is. You can always leave me a message there and I'll see it, and then I can include it, or if you have a question, I can answer it. So, see yourself this week as the animal that you are. You are an animal. Instinct and intuition is a vital part of our awareness. Intelligence isn't intellect. It's that balance point where intuition and intellect can communicate with each other, where intuition actually guides us and intellect helps to get us where our intuition points us toward. So I want you to be aware of that, especially this week, as you enter into this deeper discourse with the animals, spirit animals, totem animals in your life. To allow yourself to be the sacred animal that you are, rather than pretend that you're an intellect floating around in a body, because we are animals. We are pack animals. And what we do and how we do it, as far as intuition and instinct is concerned, is tremendously important, not just for our basic survival, but for our ability to really enjoy and embrace life on this planet. So, until next time, I hope you have a lovely week. Later on tonight, I will post a meditation so that it's not just tagged on the back of this class. I hope you have a great, great week, and thanks so much for tuning in. Bye now.